Matthew Evans, a wealthy man in his late 70s, sat alone inside his silver Mercedes, his thumb tapping impatiently against the steering wheel. The air conditioner buzzed softly, struggling to cut through the sweltering Kentucky heat. Having retired from a successful career in finance, Matthew was accustomed to life going his way. Yet today, he found himself stranded with a flat tire, far from the comfort of his immaculate mansion on the outskirts of town. Out on the edge of town, after several unsuccessful attempts to reach roadside assistance, Matthew sighed and accepted that he would have to wait. Just as frustration began to rise within him, he noticed a figure approaching down the road. A boy, perhaps 13 or 14, wearing a faded t-shirt and worn sneakers, walked with a determined look. Matthew observed as the boy's eyes narrowed, in examination of the car before he offered a polite yet confident nod. "Got a flat, sir?" the boy asked calmly. Yes, I do," Matthew replied, feeling a strange mix of relief and unease. "I was hoping someone could help. I've got no signal out here." The boy smiled slightly. "I can help with that," he said, kneeling beside the tire without hesitation. "My grandpa taught me how to change a tire last summer. Do you have a spare?" Matthew nodded toward the trunk. The boy opened it and pulled out the necessary tools. He worked quickly, his hands moving with a quiet confidence that seemed beyond his years. As Matthew stood there watching, an unfamiliar sense of humility crept over him, something he hadn't felt in a long time. He wanted to offer the boy something in return, but the young man barely looked up, fully focused on the task. After a few minutes, the boy wiped his hands on his jeans and stepped back. "All done," he said, flashing a small, satisfied smile. Matthew reached into his wallet and pulled out a few bills, holding them out to the boy. "Here, take this." Matthew was grateful, but the boy took a step back, raising his hand politely. "Thank you, sir, but I don't need anything. I'm just happy to help." Stunned, Matthew stood there, money still in his hand, as he watched the boy turn and walk away down the road. The brief encounter left him unexpectedly moved, though he couldn't quite understand why. Alone again, he slipped the bills back into his wallet and climbed into his car, watching in the rearview mirror as the boy's figure slowly faded into the distance. For the rest of his drive, Matthew's thoughts kept returning to the boy. There was a quiet dignity about him, a self-assurance that didn't come from wealth or privilege, but from something far deeper. That night, sitting alone in his opulent home, Matthew found himself unable to shake the image of the boy walking away with nothing but a smile. Seated in the leather armchair of his study, surrounded by shelves filled with books he rarely touched, the room silent except for the gentle ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner, his untouched dinner of steak and asparagus sat on a nearby table. Yet his mind remained fixed on the boy he'd met. Over the years, Matthew had crossed paths with thousands, business partners, employees, investors, and most encounters involved negotiations, favors, or deals. There was always an exchange, a price, or an expectation. But this boy, this stranger, had helped him purely out of kindness. Leaning back, he took a slow sip of his scotch, the memory of the boy's confident smile playing over and over in his mind. Matthew couldn't help but notice that the boy didn't seem to have much, he thought to himself. The worn-out shoes, the faded clothes, the dust coating his hands, all telling a silent story. Yet despite it all, the boy carried himself with a rare kind of integrity, something Matthew found increasingly uncommon these days. The next morning, unable to shake the feeling, Matthew felt compelled to find the boy. He wasn't sure why. Perhaps it was guilt, or gratitude, or simply curiosity. But something inside him felt unresolved. Driven by this impulse, he set out down the same stretch of road, his eyes scanning for any sign of the boy. Hours passed as he stopped at gas stations and small diners, asking anyone who would listen if they'd seen a young boy matching the description. Most just shrugged or shook their heads. Finally, an older woman behind the counter at a small cafe spoke up. "Sounds like you're talking about Elijah," she said, wiping her hands on her apron. "That boy's always helping folks around here. Lives with his mama over in Harlan." "Harlan," Matthew repeated, filing the name away in his mind. "Thank you." The town of Harlan was about an hour's drive away, nestled in the foothills of the Appalachians. The scenery was beautiful, but Matthew barely noticed as his mind raced with questions. What kind of life did this boy lead? What sort of family raised someone like him? When he finally arrived in Harlan, the streets were quiet, lined with modest homes and small businesses. After asking a few locals about Elijah, he was directed to a small house on the edge of town. The house was worn but neat, with a front porch sagging slightly under its own weight. "Absolutely. Here's a rephrased version of your paragraph." Matthew parked his car and paused, unsure of what to say. Taking a deep breath, he knocked on the door. After a moment, it opened to reveal a woman in her early 40s. She looked tired but kind, her eyes sharp and curious as she studied him. "Can I help you?" she asked. "Good morning," Matthew replied, clearing his throat. "I'm sorry to bother you, but I believe I met your son yesterday. Elijah, right? He helped me with a flat tire." Her expression softened immediately. "That sounds like my Elijah," she said with a small smile. "He's always helping people." "I just wanted to thank him properly," Matthew said. "He wouldn't accept anything from me yesterday." She nodded and stepped aside to let him in. "He's out back. You're welcome to wait." Matthew stepped inside, taking in the modest home. The furniture was old but well cared for, and the walls were decorated, with family photos and a few hand-drawn pictures that looked like they were from a much younger Elijah. It was a stark contrast to his own immaculate house, with its pristine surfaces and expensive artwork. Yet somehow, this place felt warmer, more alive. Following her outside, Matthew found Elijah repairing a fence. The boy looked up, surprised. To see him, "Hey, mister," Elijah greeted, wiping his hands on his jeans. "What are you doing here?" Matthew smiled, feeling unexpectedly nervous. "I just wanted to thank you again. You helped me when I really needed it, and I couldn't stop thinking about it." Elijah shrugged, his expression relaxed and sincere. It wasn't a big deal, but to Matthew, it meant a great deal, and he was determined to show it. Elijah leaned casually against the fence, his curious eyes fixed on Matthew. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The boy's calm confidence made Matthew feel somewhat uneasy, as if he were the one being evaluated. "I don't think you realize how big a deal this was." Matthew finally broke the silence. "Most people don't help strangers without expecting something in return." Elijah tilted his head, clearly puzzled by the idea. "I don't see it that way," he said. "If someone needs help and I can do it, why wouldn't I?" Matthew was struck by the straightforward honesty in the boy's words. He glanced past Elijah at the yard. The fence was a patchwork of mismatched wood, the grass patchy and uneven. Behind the house, an old swing set leaned dangerously to one side, its chains rusted and broken. It was obvious Elijah's family didn't have much, but they managed with what they had. "You've got a good head on your shoulders," Matthew said sincerely. "Your mother must be proud." Elijah smiled, glancing back toward the house. "She works hard. I just try to help out where I can." Matthew fell silent for a moment, reflecting on the boy's words. He thought about his own childhood, spent in a home not unlike this one, where his parents worked tirelessly to provide for the family and taught him the value of hard work and perseverance. Over the years, those lessons had slipped away, buried beneath his pursuit of wealth and status. Standing here now, in this simple yard, a mix of nostalgia and regret washed over him. "I'd like to do something for you and your family," Matthew said at last. Elijah straightened, his expression wary. "We're okay, mister. We don't need anything." "It's not about need," Matthew insisted. "It's about doing what's right. You helped me, and I want to return the favor." Before Elijah could reply, his mother stepped out onto the porch, wiping her hands on a dish. Towel. "Elijah, you better come inside and wash up before lunch," she called, then turned her gaze to Matthew. "Would you care to join us? It's nothing fancy, but you're more than welcome." Matthew hesitated, unaccustomed to such a warm invitation, but the genuine kindness in her voice left no room for refusal. "I'd like that," he said, following her into the house. Inside, the kitchen smelled of freshly baked bread and roasted vegetables. The table was small and surrounded by mismatched chairs, yet it was set with care. Matthew took a seat, feeling oddly out of place in his tailored suit amidst the humble setting. Elijah washed his hands at the sink before joining them, his easy smile never fading. As they ate, Matthew found himself drawn into their conversation. Elijah spoke about school, his friends, and his dream of becoming an engineer. His mother shared stories about their community, speaking quietly but proudly about the people who looked out for one another. Matthew listened closely, feeling a warmth he hadn't known in years. Despite all his wealth and success, his own home often felt cold and empty compared to this modest house, filled with laughter and genuine connection. After lunch, as they cleared the table, Matthew turned to Elijah's mother. "You've done a remarkable job raising him," he said. "He has more heart than most people I know." She smiled, her eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you. He's a good boy, but we've had our struggles. We've learned to appreciate the small things." Matthew nodded, his mind already turning over ideas. He didn't want to overstep, but he couldn't leave without doing something. For Matthew, this family had given him a gift he hadn't even realized he needed, a reminder of what truly mattered. He left their home that afternoon with a clarity he hadn't felt in years. As he drove back to his estate, his mind began to plan. This wasn't about charity. It was about honoring the boy's selflessness and the family's resilience. Elijah and his mother deserved more than patched fences and worn furniture. They deserved stability and recognition for the strength they showed every day. The next morning, Matthew made countless calls to old colleagues, contractors, and suppliers. By midday, a plan was set in motion. Within a week, trucks and workers arrived at Elijah's home. Matthew stood on the sidewalk, clipboard in hand, directing the renovations as Elijah and his mother watched in stunned silence. "You didn't have to do this," Elijah's mother said, her voice trembling as she observed the crew unloading supplies. "We've managed fine on our own." Matthew turned to her, his expression sincere. "You've done more than manage. You've thrived. But you gave me something I didn't know I was missing. Let me give back." Elijah was quieter than usual, standing beside his mother with a thoughtful expression. Matthew knelt slightly to meet his eyes. "You taught me something, Elijah. Helping people isn't about money, it's about showing up. And I want to show up for you." Over the next several weeks, the house was transformed. The sagging porch was replaced with sturdy new wood, the roof repaired, and the rusty swing set out back. The old swing set was replaced with a brand new one. Inside, the walls were freshly painted, the floors polished to a shine, and the kitchen outfitted with modern appliances. At first, Elijah tried to pitch in with the renovations, carrying planks and sweeping up debris, but Matthew gently insisted he take a break. "Your job," Matthew said with a smile, "is to enjoy being a kid for a little while." Still, Elijah couldn't resist sneaking outside to watch the crew at work, his eyes lighting up with curiosity as he observed them measuring, cutting, and building. One of the workers, a burly man named Joe, noticed Elijah's interest and invited him to help measure wood planks. Before long, Elijah was asking questions about tools and construction, his enthusiasm contagious. Matthew watched from a distance, a warm pride swelling in his chest. For the first time in years, he felt like he was doing something truly meaningful, something beyond himself. The boy's energy reminded him of the ambition he once had before life became a blur of boardrooms and stock portfolios. One evening, as the sun began to set and the project was nearly complete, the family stood together on the porch, marveling at the transformation. Elijah's mother turned to Matthew, her voice thick with emotion. "This isn't just a house anymore, it's a home. I don't know how we can ever thank you." Matthew shook his head softly. "You already have. You reminded me what life is really about: family, connection, and purpose. I think I'm the one who should be thanking you." The final day of the renovation felt like a celebration. Neighbors stopped by to admire the changes, offering warm smiles and small gifts: freshly baked bread, jars of homemade jam, and even a potted plant. Elijah's laughter rang out across the yard as he ran excitedly, showing his friends the new swing set and the freshly painted rooms. The house, once tired and worn, now brimmed with life. Matthew stood on the front porch, leaning against the sturdy new railing, watching the joyful scene unfold. He hadn't experienced this kind of happiness in years, simple, pure joy that came from seeing others thrive. Elijah's mother approached, carrying a cup of iced tea, and offered it to him with a gentle smile. "You've done more than just fix a house," she said softly. "You've given us hope, and I think you found something for yourself along the way, too." Matthew nodded, taking a slow sip. "I have," he admitted. "For so long, I chased things I thought mattered: money, status, influence. But none of it ever felt like this. None of it filled me the way this has." As the sun began to dip below the horizon, Elijah joined them on the porch, still buzzing with energy. He looked at Matthew thoughtfully. "Mr. Matthew," he said, "I've been thinking a lot about what you did for us. One day, I want to do something like that. I want to help people too." Matthew placed a steady hand on Elijah's shoulder. "You already are, Elijah. Your kindness started all of this. Don't ever lose it." The three sat together, watching the sky shift from gold to deep orange, the day's warmth lingering around them. Yet beneath it was an even deeper warmth, born of true connection. Filled with gratitude and a shared sense of purpose, Matthew prepared to leave. Elijah and his mother walked him to his car, the boy's beaming smile and his mother's tearful expression forever imprinted on Matthew's mind as he drove away. He understood this wasn't an ending, but rather the start of a new chapter for all of them. In the weeks that followed, more changes unfolded. Elijah's curiosity about construction grew into a genuine passion. Matthew arranged for him to spend time shadowing the workers who had helped renovate the house. Elijah eagerly absorbed every lesson, hungry to learn. Meanwhile, Matthew found himself returning to Harlan again and again. Each visit felt less like a trip and more like coming home. No longer an outsider in their lives, he felt connected to something greater, and for the first time in years, he found contentment. The story closed where it had started, in a small town with a big heart, where a simple act of kindness from a young boy reminded an old man of life's most profound truth. It's not about what you have, but what you give.